So Mark, tell us about event declaration templates.
Sure, Rory. Event declaration templates, a series of CodeRush templates that are expanded with the space bar or the tab key. And they just make it easier to write event-related code. So the first one I've got here is the letter D. I just type in the letter D, press the space bar or the tab key, whichever one I'm using to expand templates. And it gives me this public delegate void. Gives me an opportunity to specify what my event handler is going to be called. There it is. I'm going to call it the HoloLens event handler. That's the name of my delegate type. Hit enter. Right here is kind of an interesting decision, but the template will highlight object sender and the comma, allowing me to delete that if I want to. So sometimes you might, and if you're only familiar with doing standard events, this might seem like very strange, in which case you can just simply hit enter to go to the next piece and continue, specify what your event args would be, and then enter again. But the reason that's there is that delegates can have any parameters to them. So I can, for example, if I come down and do it a second time down here, hit enter, I might choose delete in this case, and do something like that. Or I might even replace those insides with something completely different, like passing in a string or something like that. So delegates can have any number of parameters. It's just we have that one there because it's very common when you're creating delegates, that object sender. Okay.
Sure.
And the other thing is we wanted to make it easy to delete in case you didn't want to use it. So that's what's going on there. We also have EV for creating new events. So there's what that looks like. I can specify what kind of event handler I'll have, and then the name of the event. I can just type that in, hit enter to get out to the other side of it. So I realize I should probably do that for real so you can see that. So I'll reference the HoloLens event handler, hit enter, and then come over here and I might call this head turn, like that, and hit enter.
Cool.
Okay. Down here I've got kind of the same template, but on steroids. It's EVAR. And it's, I'll show it to you, I'll expand it out to you. EVAR gives me an event declaration with add and remove blocks inside of it. And it's essentially equivalent from the standpoint of somebody looking from the outside as something like this, right, up here, this declaration. So we'll come down here, we'll do this, and we'll call this like head nod or something along those lines. Okay, and this is the code. Now, at first it looks like a little bit like, whoa, that's a lot of code that's coming in here.
Yeah.
The add and remove, the add is called whenever somebody adds a listener to this event, and remove is called whenever somebody removes a listener from this event. And we also have added some potentially useful code here. In fact, generally the whole purpose of add and remove is basically to find out when you have your first listener and to find out when you have your last listener. That's in general what's going on with, I'm sorry, not when you have your last listener. I mean, when you have no more listeners. Those are the reasons you have add and remove. And the reason you want those is because sometimes listening to an event requires you as the class, the owner of that event, to do things that are expensive. Right? Maybe you have to allocate some memory, a lot of memory. Maybe you have to read from disk. Maybe you have to make a connection, right?
Sure.
Maybe you have to load some dynamic DLLs up, right? If you've got a plugin related system that are triggered by events, things like that. So in this case, you can come in here and you can say, well, I'm not going to do those things until I get my first listener. And when you get your first listener, that's when you write that code right in here, whatever that code's going to be. Right, you're going to do the allocation, make the connection, whatever it is. And then when you have no more listeners down here, you're going to clean that up, whatever that's going to be. You'll clean up that whatever allocations you've made if you need to, right? Of course, you can delete all of these things as well. You can come in here and delete like that. Okay?
Sure, yeah.
All right, OSEA. Let me just create a new method here real quickly. We'll call this trigger. Event, like that. And OS gives me object sender with a comma, like that. OSEA gives me object sender and the event args parameter. Okay. So this could be useful for triggering event. It could also be useful for building an event handler as well, right? That I'm going to assign to some other event.
Yeah.
Okay. So for matching the signatures, this is a very fast way to come in here and just type, OSEA like that to get what you need. And notice it puts the caret right here in front of event arg, so I can now type in whatever I want to type in, like HoloLens event arg or something along those lines, or well, actually, the event args, those don't exist yet. I just realized. But yeah, I can do something along those lines right there. Okay.
Good stuff.
And I have one more, EAE up here, and that's if I've got a call to like trigger event, and I can type in EAE and pass it in. Just a quick way to get event args.empty.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Very nice.
All right. Okay. EH, that's just a very simple way to get to event handler to type that out for you if you need that. EHL, this one's kind of interesting. EHL is an event handler list. And it gives you an event handler list and declares an event for you. Okay, so here's what it looks like. We've seen the adds and removes. Right now there's no code in there. It's not as detailed as the other one we had up here where we had the code for adding and removing. I'm sorry, where we had the code to check to see if it was the first and or to check to see if there were no more event listeners. It's not as detailed. However, you can add that code if you want to, or you can modify the templates to add that code if you like that code. Let's see what's cool about this. Well, it gives you the handler piece right down in here as well. So you've got the handlers in here. And, I did this before, Rory. I thought I might do this here as well. Like one of the things that sometimes you want to do is you want to get, you want to protect against listeners from bringing everything down. Listeners to events, throwing exceptions that are unhandled and bring everything down. And so what I can do is, let me just copy that to the clipboard. We'll come in here. I'll comment that out. What I can do in here on the handler is I can come in here and I can call get invocation list like this. We'll declare a local on there. There's my invocation list. And then I can do a for each on there. And I can say, call this each one listener like this. And then I can come down here in listener and call dynamic invoke. And I can pass in those parameters, whatever they were that I was originally passing in. And what's cool about this is now that I'm here, I can just select that, hit the letter C with CodeRush, and I can wrap it in a try-catch block. And now I can add whatever protection code I want to add if somebody is throwing an exception, one of my listeners is throwing an exception. This is really good in a plugin system. It keeps one plugin from denying other plugins from getting the same event, and triggers in essentially a safe manner. Okay, down here the last two I want to show are EV dot and EV dot with followed by a type shortcut. So EV dot by itself is going to give me a generic event handler, and this uses the same essentially the same syntax, I guess if you want to call it, for the other templates that are generic. So we use the dot for generic. So EV dot gives me that, and I can just type in int, for example, or whatever I want to pass in there to my event handler, right? Or I can type in EV dot and then the shortcut. So EV dot I will just type in that in for me. EV dot S will do this, that sort of thing.
Excellent stuff.
Just one other thing. I just want to create a real, just to show you this too, class. This is going to be we'll call this class the headset is what we'll call this. I'm going to copy that to the clipboard, and we'll go back down to where we were, and I'll type in EV dot, and then that slash is going to give me what's on the clipboard. So you might have that type on the clipboard as well. And there are other ways to add your own shortcuts. And that's it.
Good stuff. Thanks very much.